Hi people, Marinur here again. In this video, I'm going to briefly discuss two horror movies. The first one is called Veronica, and the second one is called Case 39. And their occult relevancy or whatever content they have that is occult related. The first one, Veronica, is a Spanish horror movie. It's a fairly new movie. It came out in 2017, and long story short, it's about a girl that plays with a Ouija board during, I think, as I recall it, since it's been a while since I've watched the movie, but as I recall it, during an eclipse, a solar eclipse, she played with a Ouija board, and as a result, she played with her friends with a Ouija board. She and her friends played with that Ouija board, and as a result, they attracted the attention of an entity which started haunting her in particular, this girl called Veronica. And the entity just essentially toys with her until it kills her in the end, outright kills her. And this movie is based on true events. This movie, at the very least, partially, is something that took place in reality, and the Spanish police department still classify it as an unexplainable death, because apparently the police found her in a state where she was seemingly attacked by something that they couldn't see, obviously, and she was then killed right there. That's it, more or less. Of course, this is it in general, as far as I remember the case when I read upon it and I watched the movie. And yeah, the occult. By the way, if you want to see the movie, I'd recommend it. The movie isn't great, but it's a good movie. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 7. Now for the occult relevancy of the movie, which is quite obvious, which is the whole Ouija board thing. This is something that a lot of people might be interested in, is the concept of Ouija board, as in how credible are Ouija boards? That's what you guys might ask yourself. I'm gonna cover multiple things in this video, multiple topics, because since this movie centers more around the Ouija board, which is the catalyst, or which was the catalyst for everything. Yeah, I'm gonna get to discussing the Ouija board, which is questions that you would ask yourself are: how credible is a Ouija board? And a Ouija board is credible. I know this not from knowledge, not just from knowledge, my vast knowledge, or my vast levels of knowledge, but also by experience. Ouija boards, I remember back in the day, way before I was an occultist even, the very first thing I tried was a Ouija board. I ordered a Ouija board online and I started working with it. And I think I also mentioned this in a video a long time ago. In any case, I also tried working with a Ouija board, but to no avail. It didn't work in the beginning, but then I read somewhere when looking up information on it that you should work with it for a long time, and that what makes it work is the fact that your energy, or part of your energy or aura, needs to be fused with that Ouija board. And when I simply tried it on a day-to-day basis, after I think a couple of days, it didn't take long, after 2 or 3 days, I did make contact, but it was nonsensical. The level of communication with the entity that I connected with, I think it was a deceased man, a dead guy. The name I remember is Hansim, Hansim. Contact was so bad that I only got incoherent dribbling, only random letters. But the thing that made me realize, the point where I realized that it was actual contact that I made was when it's because the planchette completely moved without any interference from me whatsoever. Okay, so my mind was completely blank and I kept my entire arms, etc., loose, and the planchette moved. Okay, I could clearly feel my fingers being guided, and I could feel that the energy level is weak, but the energy level was weak of whatever was guiding me or whoever was guiding me, which is now obvious. Okay, obvious and aware of it. But but it was present nevertheless. So yes, Ouija boards are credible. It is possible with a Ouija board that you can communicate with spirits, and that a Ouija board is a good medium for communicating with spirits. But what makes a Ouija board work is you need to practice things. You need to practice it extensively. Okay, a Ouija board requires extensive practicing, and you need to really focus. Okay, all of your attention, all of your focus needs to be focused on a Ouija board. So you're not supposed to do anything else. Okay, those are the things. It's all about practice. For the rest, you don't need any kind of prerequisite knowledge or anything like that. You should simply keep a cool head, and no banishing of any kind is necessary or anything like that. Only at an advanced level. But just from the top of my head, no. So for any person that's interested in seriously working with the Ouija board, yeah, you can work with the Ouija board, but basic questions that arise are how to go about it. I already said that. You just need to work with that Ouija board, and you need to continue working with it. Keep practicing with it, and preferably put the Ouija board on your lap, or if you're with a group of people, place it. See to it that there's mutual physical contact, as in all three. Or if it doesn't matter how many people you're with, but let's just say you're with 3 or 4 people, all 4 of you or all 3 of you need to physically touch the Ouija board by default, as in at least have a hand on it, which you do not remove at any time. And yeah, since I mentioned multiple people are generally speaking also better because it adds more energy to the mix. It's basically more astral energy. Okay, as the saying goes, multiple hands make work convenient or easier. So yeah, you just need to go about things, and that's pretty much it. And for the rest, it's only a matter of time. Keep in mind that this is the case in general. Okay, if it still doesn't work for you, then if you want to work or experiment with a Ouija board, then there's something wrong. Okay, some other factor is impeding your ability to accomplish success with the Ouija board. But for the rest, yeah, that's the basic outline of what a Ouija board ritual looks like. If you want to banish that entity, you simply need to symbolically close off the board or wipe it off with a cloth, and you need to do basic visionary exercises, as in visualizing that whatever you might have whatever or whomever you might have made contact with is gone, and the quote unquote gate is closed. Okay, that's pretty much it. It's a basic banishing ritual, but it's very basic to the point where literally anyone can do it. But yeah, the effectiveness all depends on how thingy you are, on your practice, how advanced you are. With time you'll get better, but that's it basically. There is no preliminary thing needed, no preliminary ritual needed, so no visualization or anything like that. So you can work with your Ouija board right away. Optionally, you can visualize beforehand, before you start working with the Ouija board, that there are a lot of spirits within your direct vicinity, within the room or within whichever area or whatever area you're doing your thing. And that they're eager to contact you. This is just a visualization, just a basic visualization that you can either do with your eyes closed or open, it does not matter. So yeah, this is before and afterwards. It's the same thing, but banishing, like I mentioned just now. And for the rest, it's nothing but practice, practice, practice. Again, if it still doesn't work, then there is some other factor or clause that is impeding your ability to work with the Ouija board successfully. And like I mentioned in the beginning, based on my own experience, in the beginning you'll get, and don't be surprised if you get incoherent mumbling, or if the energy level is so weak that it's almost like you or the people that you're with are moving the planchette on the board itself. With time, that will get stronger and whatnot, but you simply need to keep basic things in mind. Okay, things along the lines of the same things you keep in mind when encountering a stranger or simply communicating with a stranger. Be on guard. Don't be afraid, but be mindful or wary of contact. The second that you, for example, that you successfully make contact with a spirit, an entity, doesn't matter what kind of entity it is, and the entity displays hostile or aggressive behavior, simply apologize optionally if it's your fault for offending anyone. Because, by the way, that happened to me. The entity that I contacted with successfully, the dead person that I contacted, or that I came into contact with through the board, told me at a certain point, when I kept asking him the same questions, I understand, of course. It's like asking me, the same question 5 times. I'm gonna tell you to fuck off, and that's basically the answer that I got. Okay, the answer that I got was something along the lines of, "Fuck off," stop asking me the same question over and over again. And I was startled, believe me. When you're not used to spiritual contact whatsoever, you're the average person. You know nothing about the occult, and you actually encounter hostility from a spirit, then you're going to be like, "Ugh," because that was me. I wasn't startled or scared or anything, but I was like, "Ugh." And I simply apologized. I said to the person, "My apologies if I've offended you. I didn't mean to, of course, because my problem is that I'm simply getting incoherent mumbling, etc., etc." I simply explained myself briefly, and then I closed things off. I closed off the whole Ouija board and everything and did my thing. Yeah. And let me see if there's anything else. Let me see if there's anything else. No, that's pretty much it. In any case, yeah, back to the movie. So that's in essence what the movie is about. Like I said, the movie is a good movie. It's not a great movie, but it's a good movie. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 7. It's a bit above average, but the movie is entirely in Spanish. So yeah, you better believe that you'll have to download English subtitles if you speak English only, or if you simply want English subtitles, unless you're fluent in English, of course, in Spanish. And when I said that the movie is a Spanish movie, the movie was actually, I think, shot in Spain. The movie is literally a Spanish movie regarding nationality. It's not just a Spanish spoken movie. Okay, so that's the first movie, and the explanation on a Ouija board and how to cope with the Ouija board for people that are interested in how to deal with the board. I need to check, by the way, if I have other material on a Ouija board. I don't think so, as far as I can remember. Let me see board. No, I've never done a video before on a Ouija board, okay? As far as I can tell and I can remember, no, nothing. And yeah, in any case, the second movie that I'm going to discuss is a movie that I really like. I give this movie an 8 out of 10, and the movie is called Case 39. I added that movie to my collection of horror movies. Case 39 stars the actress Renee Zellweger. And the movie, long story short, is about a social worker played by the actress Renee Zellweger that comes across a girl and that comes from a troubled home. Her parents try to kill her and are very hostile towards her. And since she can't find a good foster home for that girl, she is so smitten, okay, as in she's so enamored with the girl. She likes the girl so much to the point where she makes the decision to adopt the girl. But the girl also pleads with her partially to adopt her, and she goes to live with her, with the social worker, and and that's when she notices why, as the story unfolds, she notices why her parents tried to kill her. That girl is, in essence, she is inhabited. I mean, she is possessed with some kind of malevolent entity, some kind of spiritual entity. Even if you want to call it demonic, but that would be taken out of context, okay? Because not all demons are obviously evil and malevolent. So yeah, just a plain malevolent entity, a malevolent entity that has several psycho-telekinetic abilities in the sense of being able to have people kill themselves by bringing forth or calling forth delusions that seem so real to these people, to its targets, that these people believe that what's happening to them is real. In the movie, for example, you'll see a scene where that entity makes it so that a person kills himself. One of the friends of the social worker, played by Renee Zellweger, kills himself because while he was in his bathroom, he believed that I think flies or bugs were coming out of his ear, and it gets so bad the entire bathroom at a certain point is filled with bugs, and in his desperate struggle to try to kill all the bugs, he slips and hits his head on the toilet bowl, a porcelain toilet bowl, or the toilet sink, and bottom line is that he dies. And similar things happen throughout the movie. Okay, the entity, which is of course the entity that inhabits that girl, calls several people and whispers things to them, and then bad stuff starts happening. So yeah, the entity has several versatile. The entity is versatile in the sense that it has several abilities, and in the end, the movie's protagonist, the social worker, manages to drown the entity, or at least let the entity sink to the bottom of the ocean by driving her car off a pier and into the ocean, and the girl simply sinks along with the car, and she manages to escape. And it's close to the end of the movie that you see glimpses of the entity that shows himself or itself, that shows himself through that girl briefly. And yeah, it's a very monstrous entity. And I remember too, at the end of the movie, while she tries to swim away, she had locked that girl in the trunk of the car or in the back of the car, and the entity tries to grab her, or grabs her, is capable of grabbing her leg briefly while she tries to swim away, and it's a huge fucking hand. So that spirit, that malevolent spirit that was inhabiting that little girl, kind of looked like some kind of grayish, big, semi-giant troll, if you will. And yeah, that is it. The movie is a really good movie. Like I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it an 8.5. Really good movie. Almost not great, okay? I mean, almost great, but still not great. Nothing that I would classify as great, but not just good, it's really good. And yeah, you're asking yourself occult-wise, is it possible for something like this to, happen? Is it possible for an entity to inhabit another human being to the point where stuff like that is possible? Yes. No documented cases come to mind, but yes, it is possible. Okay, for an entity to inhabit a human being without bringing harm to that person, and and thereby making it seem like the person has paranormal abilities, even if these paranormal abilities aren't really paranormal, but a more realistic, or more of a more realistic nature, such as advanced intelligence or anything like that. This is normal. It doesn't always have to be, like in the context of the movie, it doesn't have to be a malevolent entity. It can also be a benevolent entity, kind of like a guardian spirit, you name it. Within the broad scope of things, definitely it is possible. Okay, it all depends on the individual. I think something that some people are also aware of is that people that end up in mental institutions, people that are deemed unfit for society, from a psychological perspective, not all of these people, have simply gone through things of a realistic nature. Some of these people, they ended up there through spiritual means, through negative occult means, as in, bluntly put, they fucked with the spirit, and that came of it, and that spirit damaged them so badly mentally that they can't even think straight, and that they're simply too far gone. People, for example, that have multiple personality disorder, or people that have been diagnosed by psychologists or psychiatrists as such. Yeah. People that have been diagnosed by psychiatrists as such. These kinds of people, not all of them, in some cases, yeah, it is very possible and likely even that some schizos out there have this issue, as in, there's a spirit plaguing them or haunting them, which causes the erratic behavior, and it damages them mentally. In another video that I did called Astral Parasites, it's something closely relating to that. In that video, I discuss, a really long story short, that certain stages of misery, as in heavy negative emotions, draw lower level astral entities to one, and these entities feed themselves with that negative energy. They're astral vermin, if you will, and they latch onto you. As long as you're incapable of letting go of that fear or anger or pain, they latch onto you and they simply gorge themselves upon your negativity. And while doing so, at the same time or simultaneously, they also make it worse. So they amplify your negativity, and that's why you see some people on being to deal or to cope with unable to deal or cope with grief to the point where years pass by and these people just keep deteriorating further mentally and physically because they're still not only have they not been able to let go of said grief, for example during the death of a loved one, but the grief has gotten worse and it just progressively worsens. Yeah, in some cases it's because of that. And it's the same thing, okay? Bottom line is that it is possible for a person to be possessed by a spirit or a spirit to inhabit a person. But like I said, it's a really broad subject. It all depends on the situation itself. That person does not have to end up in a mental institution or be deemed mentally unfit for society. That person can be perfectly normal, and the spirit also does not have to be anything negative per se. Okay, for the sake of the movie Case 39, it's a malevolent spirit. Otherwise, the movie wouldn't be a horror movie if it was just some friendly spirit like Casper. No, but there are also benevolent spirits that guide people. But like I said, it is rare and it all depends on the situation. It's anything but a black and white scenario, so it's not something that you can just classify basic as in being a basic entity and that's all or that's it. No, it all depends. In any case, that's it. See the link in the description if you want links to the movies and everything else that you might need or want. And that's all. Bye.